Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? So I'm here to give you some more insights and tips on things that you can do to improve your health, your lifestyle, to provide a good, solid foundation of health and longevity for you. So today I want to talk about the quality of the air, the quality of your lungs. So when you look in your home, then think about the products that are in there and the furniture. So the rugs, the upholsteries, the curtains, even shower curtains. How long have you had them in there? And when you got them, when you first unwrapped them and put them in your home, did they give an off gas of different chemical odors? That's very common, especially with furniture and carpets, draperies. And we don't often think about those things because it's just, part of our house. And yet, when you really, hello, thanks for tuning in. When you look at the chemicals that are actually off-gassing into your home and do some research into them, they're quite toxic. And when you think about all of the increase of the respiratory issues that over the last few years, and especially this year with the virus, then there's all the big concern about the respiratory health. And so here's something to really consider to improve and increase your respiratory health, is look at the quality of air in your home. And if there's off-gassing from things like new furniture, new bedding, sheets, plastics. And also look at the air filters, the plug-in air filters, air purifiers that you have in your home. Oftentimes, we put them in there to cover up odors, but have you really looked at what's in them? What are they made of? A lot of them are toxic chemicals that then just get dispersed into the air and then you breathe them. And over time, with all of these different chemicals that are in our homes, and we're breathing that in the air all of the time, what do you think that's going to do for your sinuses, your respiratory system, your throat, your lungs? That really is a big contributing factor to a lot of the respiratory problems, the asthmas, the allergies of things, and as well as the infections that happen every winter. So look at that. And so what can you do about that? Well, one of the biggest things and easiest and most immediate things you can do is open your windows and doors. Turn on the ceiling fan. Let the air move through your home and circulate. I often like to diffuse essential oils into my house, and that purifies and refreshes the air as well as giving a really nice scent. So you can diffuse ylang-ylang, citrus oils, frankincense, peppermint, or any kind of mint, lemongrass, geranium. There's all kinds of essential oils that you can diffuse into your house based upon whatever your mood is for the day. And so if you can also use peppermint essential oil and eucalyptus essential oil directly on your chest, your sinuses, your throat. If you have some congestion, if you have some issues, you can just apply it topically. You can put a couple of drops in your hand and then breathe them in. Take several long, slow breaths. Breathe in as deeply as you can to get the essential oils all the way deep into your lungs. That's very helpful for if you have respiratory issues, like asthma or allergies. Peppermint essential oil is really good for that. Another thing that you can do is put plants in your home. There's a lot of different plants that have been studied and looked at for their ability to pull out chemicals and pollutants and toxins out of the air. And as we all know, plants give off they give off oxygen, which we breathe in, and we breathe out carbon dioxide, which they need. And so we've got that symbiotic relationship with plants. So bring some plants into your home. Another thing that you can do in terms of food that can really support the health of your lungs is red potatoes, yellow and green apples, aloe vera and garlic and broccoli. Those foods are very helpful for targeting the lungs, helping the tissues and the cells in those organs repair, regenerate, cleanse, heal. So those are, if you have issues going on with your respiratory system and your lungs, then make sure that those foods are in your diet every day. And over time, then they can support you in having healthier lungs. Another thing you can do is deep breathing exercises. Just opening up the lungs, all these little air pockets or air sacs that comprise your lungs. They need to be able to breathe and to move, to close, to fill up and completely close all the way. And so deep breathing exercises, especially if you're doing it with essential oils and breathing them in deep, that really helps open up the lungs. So that's a couple of suggestions for the physical care of your lungs. Now I want to share with you a couple other things in terms of the psychological and the emotional end of things, because they play a huge, big part like everything else. In traditional Chinese medicine, then there's different energy pathways called meridians that go through the body, and they are all paired. So there's a meridian for the lungs, an energy pathway for the lungs, and that meridian's counterpart or partner is the large intestine or the colon. So you would think on first glance, it's like, what do they have to do with each other? But they're actually quite related, and I'll explain. So when we're thinking about the lungs and the health of the lungs and taking deep breaths in, hello, thanks for tuning in, then it's about taking in life, taking in spirit, taking in energy, life force through our breath. And so my question for you is, how open and willing are you to really embrace your life? Do you enjoy your life? Are there parts of it that make you contract and withdraw and close off, to make you anxious and nervous to where you can't breathe deeply? If so, then take a look at that, because that affects a lot the openness, the health of the tissues of your lungs. Another thing that's very common, and especially from traditional Chinese medicine, that's associated with the lungs is sadness and grief. So if there's been a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, and this year people have had a lot of it, but is that being held in your body in the area of your lungs to where you can't breathe deeply, you can't embrace life, you're closing off from it because of tension, anxiety, grief, pain, loss, the various heavier emotions that we often feel. Those emotions tend to get stored in the lungs, and over time and distance, if that energy can't move out, then the physical tissues, the air pockets of your lungs, they can't open and expand the way they need to. So you're not breathing as deep, you're not breathing as fully, and then pretty soon you've got physical issues, physical congestion and acidity and toxic buildup in those tissues, which then eventually can lead to problems, infections, asthma, and such. So it's all related. So think about that. Are there things that you're dealing with emotionally that you're having a hard time letting go of? And so that ties in with the companion meridian and organ of the lungs, according to Chinese medicine, and that's the colon or the large intestine. So that meridian, that energy, or that area of the body, that tissue, that organ, emotionally and energetically, it's all about letting go of not controlling, or issues around control. Do you hang on too tight and control everything in your life? Oftentimes when there's things that we have a difficult time dealing with emotionally, or sadness and grief and traumas and all of that hard things of life that we can't deal with and let go of, then we want to control things around us so that we don't feel those difficult, sad, grief-filled moments or feel out of control. And so then the area of our body that's the colon, that energy meridian line can get congested and stagnant too, because we're not letting go. And so from either end of our torso, then you've got taking in embracing life, and then with the colon, releasing and letting go of what you're done with. So there's got to be that flow, that circuit of things. And if the energy ever gets stagnant and it sits there for a long time and you don't do anything with it, then you're setting yourself up for problems. So today my invitation to you is just looking at the quality of air. Are you breathing deeply? How are your lungs? You know, with all the craze about the infection and the virus and the respiratory issues this year, and people covering their mouth with masks, just stop for a minute and consider, what is that really doing psychologically, emotionally, energetically? How is that affecting the health of your lungs, of your sinuses, of your throat, by having them always covered, by maybe not breathing deeply, not getting the amount of oxygen that you need because you've had to wear a mask all day long? So if you're in a situation where you have to do it for work, then when you're out of work, take the mask off, breathe, give yourself the amount of oxygen your body is meant to have in order to function and run and be healthy. Do some deep breathing, pull out some eucalyptus essential oils, peppermint essential oils, even frankincense, and put a couple of drops of that into your palm and breathe deeply. Do some really deep breathing exercises that can help. So the last thing I want to share with you is an experience that I had several years ago. So in my family growing up then, my dad had hay fever. He also had asthma. Some of my brothers also had hay fever and asthma. And so there's always this awareness of, you've got to be careful or be aware of like fall and spring allergies and pollen. And, you know, my dad was always taking antihistamines and always having to be careful with that. And fortunately, growing up, I never had anything until I got to college. And I don't know what changed, but one year we were out with a family vacation, I think in southern Utah somewhere. And it was in the fall, or no, maybe in the spring, when the grasses were all gone to seed. And I started sneezing and sneezing and sneezing. It was the first time I had any kind of a reaction to grasses and their seed and their pollen. And so that kind of took me by surprise. It's like, oh no, don't tell me that I'm getting, you know, hay fever like so many other people in my family. And then that began this series for several years of every winter, I would always get a sore throat, congestion in my sinuses, and it'd come down towards the upper part of my lungs. And I just thought that's just the way it is in the wintertime. And I also noticed in the springtime that the hay fever started to get worse and worse over the years. I'd get more reactive to it. And while I was still in college, and I went in and had some allergy tests, and I don't know if they still do this now, but at the time then they had these little prick marks on my skin, on my back. So I had like 20 of them all the way down my back in like rows. And then they put in the different pollens or things from the different grasses or plants that people are reactive to. Just a little drop of the plant essence, I don't know what it is, but just to see how you reacted. And so I remember looking at my back in the mirror, and it's like all of these rows all the way down my back of varying degrees of pink spots, itchinesses of slightly pink and then really red and really irritated areas of whatever was put in that little scratch mark. But it was just kind of interesting to see all of that on my back and like, oh my gosh, I'm allergic to all this stuff, all these grasses and pollens. But so that's what I dealt with for several years, in addition to the annual winter congestion and cold and flu. However, I can say, thankfully, I don't have that anymore. So what did I do? So this was before I knew anything about diet, of healthy living, of taking care of the body. There's several years, as I've mentioned before to you guys, where I was working with an energy healer. A woman who is very gifted, very intuitive, she's like a medical intuitive, very psychic. And so she taught me how to do energy healing work, and she worked with me for several years. And So in the course of the sessions that I had with her, then she would like clear the energy or move the energy that had been congested wherever in my body. And there was a lot of congestion that had been built up in my lungs and my chest area. Energetically, probably physically from, just overall congestion, phlegm, mucus, acidity, on the physical level of things. But again, that was before I knew anything about having to take care of the body and anything about diet. It was just with energy work. And so over a couple of years, I noticed with just having energy healing work done that I didn't get the annual winter congestion and sore throat and cold like I did. Just from energy work, from clearing the energy, clearing the emotional congestion. And that, yeah, there was a lot of grief and sadness and heaviness there, but it was just the energy healing work. So when somebody tells me that there's nothing to it, then I was like, no, there really is something to it. So over the years, then I had, all of that clear out, and so I never get that anymore. And additionally, the hay fever went way, way, way down. And then later on, when I learned about healthy eating and in detoxing and cleansing out the body, then that just compounded the whole thing too. So if you do both the energy clearing work or the emotional healing work coupled with the physical care of the right foods, essential oils, getting the toxic chemical stuff out of your house, and airing out your house with the opening the doors and running the ceiling fan. When you do all of that together, if you do have stuff and issues with your lungs, with your allergies, hay fever and such, then that can shorten the time to find relief and even reverse that condition. But just know that you've got to address both the physical as well as the energetic and emotional. So that's something to think about, to consider, that yes, just by doing energy work alone, I was able to make a lot of change in my physical health. And then coupled that with lifestyle, diet, detoxification, cleansing protocols, then it's even that much more effective and that much more sooner that you can see some different results. All right, so that's just what I wanted to share with you today. What types of things have you done? If you have congestion in your throat, your lungs, what has worked for you? I'd love to hear some of your comments, or even anything that you've enjoyed about what I shared with you today, anything that sparks your thoughts or your memories of something. So please do share, and until next time, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.